Prinzing, and I'm here to welcome you to the Slow Flower Show, episode 535. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's December 1st. It's time to put away all the pumpkin and harvest decor and think about the floral palette for our winter holidays. I'm so happy today to introduce you to Lori Paliski of Flory. She's a Slow Flowers member whose design studio is based in Woodinville, Washington, outside of Seattle. Lori is one of 37 creatives featured in my book, Where We Bloom, published by Bloom Imprint this past spring. In fact, Lori's studio is the first to be featured in the opening pages of the book. She is in a 6-page story titled Modern Homestead, a horse barn converted with function and beauty in mind. Lori's narrative shares her path to flowers, including the story of forming her business in 2017 and choosing the studio name Flory from the Latin floris, which means flower, and of course it rhymes with her name. You'll want to check it out and read the story. You can order Where We Bloom from our website at bloomimprint.com and at the shop at slowflowersociety.com. After the book's publication, the editors of Cottage Journal magazine asked Slow Flowers to create a holiday decor themed story, which is out right now, featuring some of the creative spaces in the book. Lori transformed the exterior of her rustic horse barn with blue-gray shingles and a whimsical striped awning with holiday greenery, wintry props, and red accents. You can find the story called Seasonal Garden Settings in Cottage Journal's Cottage Christmas issue on newsstands right now. So Lori agreed to join me and not only share more about her floral enterprise, but teach us how she makes 100% compostable wreaths. A former teacher, she prepared for our conversation by listing all the specific conifer varieties and sources she planned to use. As one who nearly flunked out of winter plant ID at the community college, mostly due to learning about conifer varieties and identification, I'm so appreciative of Lori's handy ingredient list that she shared with me. You can find that along with photographs of Lori's finished wreaths, which I'll include in next week's podcast show notes for episode 535 at deborahprinzing.com. Right now, let's jump right in and meet Lori Paliski. I'll share our sponsor thanks at the end of the show. Hey everybody, I'm so excited today to say hello to my friend Lori Paliski of Flory. Hi Lori.
Hi Deborah, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, and thanks for jumping on this split screen so we can see your studio and what you're doing. This is so fitting because this episode is launching on December 1st. We're all in we have the Thanksgiving hangover behind us and we're all in the mood for the holidays. And you agreed to let us see your studio and do a little design work. So before we get started, I'd love to have you tell people a little bit about Flory, where you're located and what are the facets of your business.
Perfect. So Flory is a rustic studio florist located in Woodinville, Washington, which is about 30 minutes northeast of Seattle. And I am in a horse barn right now that I have partially remodeled. My space is about 12 by 24. And I do weddings and events. I used to do workshops and I hope to do so again. And I did daily deliveries. I'm not doing that so much anymore. And then I have a couple subscriptions with realtors for a gift when someone buys a home. And I really want to go into eco-friendly celebration of life because I think that's important. That's one area of floristry that is heavily not eco-friendly.
Yeah. Let's talk about that before we wrap up, because I do think that's sort of a new chapter that will really be important for starting a dialogue. Well, you and I met, I think when you joined Slow Flowers, we have in the Seattle market, we've got lots of mutual friends in our floral peeps. And I am so excited that you agreed to be in our fabulous new book that came out earlier this year, Where We Bloom. So if anybody is curious how to learn more about Lori, pick up this book. You can order it from Bloom Imprint or the Slow Flowers Mercantile at slowflowersociety.com. And you are the first profile in the book. And I know that wasn't your plan.
Was not my plan.
But Robin Ovney, our art director, fell in love with this photo, Lori, of you in the. You said you're in a horse barn. You're up in the loft there, right?
Yes.
Oh my
And
gosh!
I actually feed my horses twice a day, and I'm in the loft morning and night, and I have to climb a vertical ladder. So that's not just a pose picture. I climb up there every day.
Actually, you're holding a wreath there too, so that's fun. And then there's the spread goes for 4 pages. There's some other of the inside. I called you Modern Homestead. I love that you use the term rustic. Here's some more interior photos and a really nice story about Lori's business. Actually, just kind of we're in this era of people creating chapters 2 and reinventing themselves, and that's a lot about your story. So we'll hear about that in a moment. But one more thing, and that is we featured several of the designers from Where We Bloom in Christmas Cottage, which is a magazine you can find on the newsstand right now. It's part of the Cottage Journal series, and I just have to show everybody how Lori's barn looked when we photographed it. Our friend Missy Palikal photographed it. You decorated it so beautifully. And shall we tell people when this happened?
Sure. That's the fun thing, right? It was Christmas in June. So I actually had to remove all my summer pots, and I had hanging baskets full of, summer annuals, and tuck those away and get out some birch. And actually everything in there came from my property, including the red roses. So I don't think I didn't buy anything for that. Even repurposed my husband's old sled.
Yeah. And the pony, the pony is not yours. It's the neighbor's, right?
No, the pony is mine. His name is Danny Boy. And
that's right.
he is in his 20s, and we got him when my daughter was 3, Claire, and she did show him for a little while, but then she has horse allergies. So we just have a really cute pony, and he's my model for dahlia flower crowns and garland.
And like garlands and all. Yeah. Well, I'm so appreciative that you said yes, along with Teresa Rao of Bel Patal and Sandy Feigl of Verbena Floral Seattle. So I will put a link to that article for people to see. And actually, I have the PDF so we can share it in our show notes next week. It was fun because the editor said we'd like to highlight Where We Bloom, but we need something for the holidays, and you guys all whipped yourselves into action and decorated. And yes, it was June when Missy took the photos.
And it was raining, so it did give it a more wintry feel. And I feel
you're right.
For the opportunity, Deborah, and also to share the pages with Teresa and Sandy. So.
Oh yeah, it was great. And I think that you're back to your idea of you didn't spend any money to decorate. It makes me want to say that you should call yourself a farmer florist, because you do grow a lot of the elements you design with. You're not a farm per se, but you're cutting a lot from your property, right?
Right. And I have a background. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and we never bought a Christmas tree in our lives. We had this acreage that we called the Pines, and we would just go up and cut a tree. So I kind of grew up like this wild child, gardening, and I guess I'm recreating it as an adult.
Well, let's talk about your story, but I know you're going to design for us. So they say that talented women can walk and chew gum at the same time. Are you comfortable talking and designing at the same time?
I used to be a teacher, so let's see if I have that skill.
Great. Well, so first of all, your space, you've decorated it a little bit. You said it's 20 by 12 by 20?
12 by 24. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Used to park a tractor, a John Deere, and a Kubota in here. So
wow, give us a little bit of a snapshot. And also the story is in the book, but you transformed a rustic space into something really warm and cozy and cottage-like.
Yes. It was actually my friend Angie's idea, because I was working out of my garage and I was looking for a space of where I could, I have a little cottage that's kind of an office for me, but it's not big enough to do a wedding in, that's for sure. So, I would get, as any florist who works out of a garage that has a family, whenever I would do a wedding, I'd say, okay, no one's allowed in the garage. You can't get sports equipment. If you need anything, I'm going to get it, because I didn't want them to break any blooms. I have an outdoor barn cat that would go in and out. So I really wanted a dedicated space that I could control what happens in that
Yeah.
space, and that's
Yeah.
this space. So.
So
And
no bicycles, no ski equipment, no pet supplies. It's your space.
it's my space. I do have a little cat bowl down here because I do have my shop cat Max, who is a large outdoor cat that loves to come in the studio. So I still have a pet in here sometimes.
How did you finish it? Is it horizontal siding that you've
It's
created and covered?
yeah. I'll pop this up. I have a cedar ceiling, and that I wanted for the fragrance. And then I have pine. Actually, it's for shiplap. That's horizontal, and it does have the knotty pine. And one thing that was really important to me, and this goes kind of back to the sustainability and eco-friendly platform, is and I do this in my personal life as well. I used all no VOC paint. So the reason you see the knots in the wood is because I didn't want to use a really heavy duty pigmented paint. I wanted to keep it natural. I also sealed the floor with it was for a kennel actually. So it was good for pets, and it's a non-volatile organic compound paint. For the floor and the walls, and also in my cooler, I was very aware of, I thought, what if something off gases and kills my expensive flowers that I have purchased from the growers market?
Right.
So, I really tried, and I have LED lighting. I don't love the warmth. I love incandescent for warmth. These are LEDs, but they're. I'd love to be like a LEED certified green building, but I'm not. But I tried with lighting to do LEDs, and let's see what else.
Well, for task lighting, it's probably good. You're not going for ambiance. You're trying to be productive in there.
Right. And I do have, I have electric heat, and it's noisy, so I don't have it on right now. But honestly, florists work in the cold. I mean, when I'm working with evergreens, I don't want the heat blasting.
Right.
So,
right.
Most people who come in here want to turn the heat on. I'm like, what? It's fine.
You've acclimated.
Oh, and then I have, I didn't feel like the expense was too great to put in plumbing for a bathroom, but for workshops, I really wanted to have a bathroom. So I have an incinerator toilet that is not a composting toilet, but an incinerator toilet. So incinerate, you can kind of take it from there.
Okay.
But it works fine. I've had some people say, I'll wait till I go home. But I have a small bathroom, and I have really beautiful wallpaper in there. I tried to make it pretty, even though it's kind of like glamping.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so elegant, and that kind of fits your style. When you described Flory as a rustic flower studio, I thought, is it rustic? It's elegant and rustic, maybe.
Well,
you have a polish to what you do.
I wanted everything pretty neutral. I have let's see if I can show you the beam here. Whoops. I have baskets up there. Can you see that beam? That's actually a big support beam that was built, when the barn was built 25 years ago. So it's not vintage, but it's definitely
original.
Rustic. Yeah, it's original. I always mean to go up and like kind of clean it up a little bit, but I like, because I can hammer things into it and hang baskets and dried flowers. So what was I going to say? I wanted everything neutral. So any of the art I have is pretty neutral. I have these kind of relief metal paintings that, let's see if you can see that. That's just neutral gray. And then I have a white one over there between. So, and I can pop those on and off. They're lightweight. So if I want to,
hang something else or whatever.
I do have, when I did a styled shoot, I do have some photographs from the styled shoot up. And those are those mixed tiles, so I can just pop them on and off as I want.
So, Lori, I know, obviously you mentioned not doing workshops probably because of COVID and all. Pre-COVID, were you consulting with brides and couples in the space?
Wedding couples and mother of the brides. I would meet with them here, which is... It's interesting to have a working space and a meeting space because you have to be kind of tidy.
Yeah.
So that might be a challenge for me. I'm kind of a messy creative, but no. So I definitely would have wedding consultations. I've had wreath workshops here. I had a lot of I've had floral workshops and one-on-ones. I actually have a one-on-one on Wednesday.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
I'm still doing it, but on a much smaller scale right now. It's nice. I have a patio out of the French doors, and I have an awning. So in the spring and summer, I can have outdoor workshops. So that is something that I hope to do in the spring.
Good. Yeah. The striped awning is such a beautiful contrast to that beautiful blue-gray stain on the outside of the barn. So
Thanks.
that's why the art directors love it for photography.
Well, I pretend I'm in Paris sometimes. I looked at. I didn't do like a lot of inspo. I just thought, well, I've lived long enough that I kind of know what I like, and I just thought, well, I want a striped awning.
Yeah. I love it. That's so cool. Well, you've transformed the space. Now you're going to do a little holiday design for us, and I'm going to turn on the other camera since you've got a demo camera set up.
Yes.
And Lori, you have no shortage of conifers to draw from, right? I mean, tell us a little bit about what you're doing here.
Yes, I have lived on this property for 25 years, and we planted a lot of evergreens. And I don't know if anyone plants landscaping. Always in the Northwest, it will grow taller and wider than what it says on the tag. So outside of the studio, I have a row maybe of 10 Western red cedar. And cedar is actually not in the cedrus family. It is, it's called Thuja plicata. Sounds like chicken piccata to me, but, and it's, so I have a lot of Western red cedar. I have it on the driveway, actually along our on our street. I planted a native garden. So I was really into, red maple, vine maple, and the Western red cedar. I did a dwarf variety and some huckleberry and ferns and things like that. Because I think, well, if I give the deer and the wildlife a place to go, maybe they'll leave my roses alone.
Right. And that's maybe their natural foraging diet anyway, or the native plants in the Northwest.
So let me just show you. So I did just cut all of these yesterday, not realizing it wasn't going to rain today. So I was out in that lovely rain yesterday, but I don't mind it. That's one of the things I love about this job is I'm outside, I'm cutting, any weather, snow.
It's good for your skin. I always tell myself that at least.
So this is, Western red cedar is pretty lacy.
Yeah.
One side
like
is
a
bright
fan.
green. Yeah, one side is bright green and then one side is darker. So I often will layer them like that just to give a little bit different hue. And then I have a lot of, this is called a Leyland Cypress, and it's actually a natural hybrid that the parents are a Nootka cypress and a Monterey cypress that are both native to the United States. But I think in the 1700s, somebody from Liverpool named C.J. Leyland went to Wales and planted them next to each other, and he got the Leyland Cypress. And they are a fast-growing tree that people use as a hedge, but don't plant them where you want sun.
They're like the bamboo of the conifer world, aren't they?
Yes, but I kind of like them for the, it looks like it's pretty flat, and it's more elongated than the cedar. Like if you put them side by side, you can see.
Mm-hmm. The needle sprays are longer.
And they're kind of a blue-gray that I like. So I have a lot of that. And then Douglas fir.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get really long and branchy, but I like the kind of tips where it has little cones. And one side is a kind of a grayish green, and then it's a darker green. So I often layer these. For people that, might see a traditional wreath at a hardware store or grocery store, they often use noble or grand fir, and those are really dense and puffy. I don't have that, so I tend to cut more of the evergreens I have, and I layer them. This is something I bought from Tosh's farm in Snohomish. He's a kind of a foliage farmer in the area, and he has 5 acres, and this is an Austrian pine, and I just like the texture. I just use this as an accent, not for the base. And then everybody knows these, the arborvitae, or pyramidalis, emerald green, but it's actually got a nice little short branch quality, and it's puffy. And so
very textural.
I put this on top. So I'll show you how I kind of made a bundle. Oh, and then I also bought this from Tosh. This is a incense cedar, And this is native to California and Oregon and down into Mexico. And I love it because it has little gold tips. So sometimes I choose a palette for my wreaths, for seasonal wreaths, and I've chosen magnolia. I'm going to use magnolia leaf.
Oh, wonderful. So
with this,
yeah.
Because it's been so dark and dreary in November, and I need golden light. So I decided to do warm, rich tones instead of blues. Last year I did blue cypress and blue ice and a lot of blue tones, but this year I'm feeling gold. So I'm using Alaskan willow as well for some branching.
I love it.
One more thing.
Yeah.
This is a lemon cypress that I love just for the fragrance.
And that gives you a little bit more of a golden lime contrast.
So when you see, I actually made a wreath. If you look at my Instagram, I have a wreath that I made that shows all of these materials I have a little library that my family made for me a couple years ago, because I love flowers, I love books, and I love horses. So I try to combine all those things in my life.
I just wanted, when you say little library, are you talking about in your house or?
No, it's actually what's called the Little Free Public Library. So there's a Little Free Public Library movement across the United States, maybe in Canada, and it's people will build a little tiny library with a door, so it protects it from the elements, and they stock it with books. So I'm I'm the librarian in my neighborhood. So. And you take a book and leave a book. You don't have to leave a book. You can take as many. I have little kids. It was wonderful during the height of the pandemic because I would have kids show up and say, "When are you putting new books in?"
Oh, I know. I thought that's what you were talking about because I saw that you posted a photo and I didn't know it was your library. But I love seeing them around neighborhoods, kind of like on a mailbox post almost.
Yeah, it's almost like a mailbox post, and I love it because we have new neighbors that are moving in, and they have young children. We have a lot of more mature people on our street, and so I mature in age, I should say.
Yes.
And so I'm excited that there's like kids,
little ones.
Yeah, you do have to check the book stock though, because some people put in books that maybe
need to be edited or censored.
I'm not into censorship, but content wise. So.
I love it.
Right,
well, so what is the size of this wreath base?
So I have a lot of wreath orders this week. One client wants 2 large wreaths for her door, but then she wants 4 window wreaths. So this is probably 8 inches in diameter, and I actually have to make 6 of these.
Okay.
Within a couple days.
All right. Well, thanks for indulging us. Hopefully this can be one of them that you can check off your to-do.
And if they're going in a window, I like to moss the back of it because you don't want to see. I try to use all natural materials. Mm-hmm. I use grapevine wreaths, and sometimes I make them out of willow. I have a lot of red twig dogwood, so I'll try to make them with materials I have, and or I buy them. But I will moss it on one side, and then I'm using this wax temp twine that I really like. You can also use, the traditional method is to use paddle wire. And the one tip I'll say to anyone watching is if you haven't made a wreath, you don't want to cut the paddle wire and you don't want to cut your twine. You want to keep it continuous because that's how you get the taut.
Sure.
So
sure.
I don't want to be too pedantic, but I'll just show you. I have a whole bunch of bundles here that I've made, but I'll show you how I layer. So I might do a couple pieces of cedar, and I might do one dark green side, one light green, and then let's see. Then I like to put the Doug fir on top, and I might do another little piece of the Leyland Cypress. And then I like to flip the Doug fir back and forth, and I'll do that little bit of pyramidalis.
Then you get that dimension to
and then this is Austrian pine, and then I have some cut twine here, and I'll just tie it. I have to tell you, when I'm really pumping out wreaths, last year I made wreaths for the Ballard Seattle Farmers Market, and I had a canopy set up outside because I have a wreath table too, and I made so many wreaths last year I don't even know. And I would do it.
You've got your method then.
Well, I mean, sometimes I'll do them. I'll make it with a wreath table with the prongs, but I generally like hand tied. In fact, let me show you this one. This was popular last year at the farmer's market. I
Oh,
don't know if you can
beautiful.
see.
Oh,
It's kind of a half wreath. And
yes.
I use this dusty blue silk ribbon. And I just put a couple pine cones. So this is an easy wreath for people to make.
And the base is just a pre-made, just 100% natural grapevine wreath.
Grapevine. And then I use this waxed hem cord that I buy from New Age Floral. I love it because, I can't control when somebody buys one of my wreaths, what they're going to do with it. I try, if I have a wire frame and I have paddle wire, to cut it and recycle it or whatever. But most people don't do that. It just goes right in the garbage. So when I make garlands and wreaths, I'm trying to use this waxed hemp because it's 100% compostable.
Wow. I love it.
So let me show you. So I started, you want to secure it onto one side of your wreath here, whether you're using wire and you want to go in one direction and you want to alternate. You want to put one bundle on that's kind of straight on the frame, your wreath frame, and then just wrap it around 3 times.
Oh, beautiful.
And then depending on you, I have a pet peeve about wreaths. I like to see the center. I think for symmetry, you can go kind of wild on the outside of the frame, but the inside, you always want to see that circle, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you want it to really read as a wreath rather than just a
bundle.
Globe of some sort. Yeah.
Right.
So what were you saying about how you have one spray that's in alignment, and what do you do with the other spray?
Well, I'll show you. I'm going to angle one outward.
Okay.
Like this. So instead of putting it straight on, you can do that if you want it very symmetrical, but I like a little bit.
That's such a great tip. I've never done that, but it gives you a fuller outer measurement, but you still are getting that center negative space in the center.
Right.
Okay,
and then this one I might angle a little bit in, and you want to always cover your mechanics, your stem binding point. So this one I might go a little bit inward. And you can always kind of fluff these, but when you tie it on, it's actually helpful to kind of position it where you want it.
And that twine, is it wax coated or is it?
Yeah, it's coated in a botanical wax. So
it's got a bit of a grip to it.
Oh, it's super strong. I cannot break it.
Wow, I love it. Lori, that is so interesting because you say it's a 12-inch base, but the final wreath is...
Oh, yeah, usually... Depending on your bundle size, if you make pre-bundles, if you pre-bundle your greens, it usually adds 8 to 10 inches to your, tip to tip. Yeah, I would say. So if you want to start out with a 14-inch base, you're going to have a 24-inch wreath, and a standard door size is, anywhere from like 24 to 26 inches.
Well, I'm heading up to Whidbey Island later this week for a workcation with a girlfriend who's got a rental house up there. And she's just emailed me and said, let's make some wreaths. So now I'm going to try this method. I'm also going to bring a grapevine base because I know she only has metal bases. So I'm going to try to do what you're advising, like make it 100% compostable.
Yeah. And, you can just use... You can just use twine. I have just a roll of twine, but I find that sometimes this just like sisal twine just can kind of snap sometimes when you don't want it. I also have this one in the can with a rapid clip so you can cut it easily. I've tried a couple different things, but I like this method. The other thing you can do with a grapevine base that I like is you can insert branches. So when you're finished with your bundles and you say, oh, you can edit with your clippers and say, that's too long. I'm going to snip that there.
Got it. Yep.
Then you can take a branch and insert it into the structure of the wreath, which is why I like using a vine wreath. And I have one here.
That's such a good point because you can insert it and it'll pretty much stay there.
Yeah, I love that. And then this I made, I think, out of honeysuckle. And, you can save these from year to year. This is
my gosh, that's beautiful.
This is 3 years old. I mean, I wouldn't like enter this in a wreath mechanics. It's fine.
But they actually are kind of pretty and decorative naked during this off season, right?
I mean, you saw in the book Where We Bloom, I often will just hang a wreath on. I just like the look of it on a white wall.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm just going to keep going around, and then I usually finish mine. I like just like one area that's accented, so I might just have this incense cedar here and here. I might put this with some magnolia leaves. This is
for your accent.
Yeah, this magnolia leaf is too big for this. I have more in my cooler. But I might put a pine cone and a magnolia leaf. I would do 3s, 5s, same in
Yeah.
all floristry. And then I might do my ribbon right near there and say, call it a day. But
Yeah.
that's how I that's how I do my wreaths. And I can't take credit for this mossing. This is a very British technique that I learned. I took a wreath workshop with Philippa Craddock.
Oh, right.
And I think she makes gorgeous wreaths.
Megan and Harry's florist.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I love she's the one that said you don't want to see a naked wreath on the backside.
So I wanted to ask you about that. So when it's hanging in the window, it's on the outside of the house.
But it's going to be on the outside of the house, but you're going to see it from the inside. So do you want to see the vine or do you want to see some green?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful finishing detail, and I can see why you love that, because you want it to be a whole piece.
Right. And then she actually will moss the whole thing around because she says it actually creates a better base for the stems and the greenery, and keeps them, if you missed it, it holds in moisture. So there's a couple benefits to the moss. I mean, this moss on the backside is really just decorative. So
yeah, very cool. Well, as you're going and finishing up, I want to talk a little bit more about Flory. Can you you keep going? People can kind of get the gist of it now, what you're doing, and it'll be fun to see it finished. How old is Flory? When did you actually start the business?
I started Flory in May of 2017. So in May of 2022, it'll be 5 years old, which is hard to believe. And it's, during that time, we've had a pandemic, and I had a foot and shoulder surgery. So I guess I would say to anybody starting a small business, just keep plugging away, one foot in front of the other.
Right.
You got to roll with whatever, the environment throws at you. Because
I mean, we would never start anything if we wanted if we waited for the crystal ball to tell us it was safe, right?
Right.
And so you had obviously a prior emphasis in your life. I know you're a mom, and you've worked in the tech world. What triggered all this? What led you to make the break?
I think it was from when I was growing up on the farm. My mom grew a lot. I'm one of 7, so there were 9 people to feed. And I think we had a half-acre garden, and she would plant companion flowers all around, like marigolds and zinnias, and then she loved peonies. So and I grew up on a really old farm in New Jersey and South Jersey, and so we had, on this, if I could buy that place now, it had, like 100-year-old climbing roses and lilacs. And I didn't appreciate it as a kid, but now I think about that yellow climbing rose up the side of a barn.
You're trying to kind of recreate that image that gives you a sense of home and comfort.
Well, and then the other thing is I worked as my odd jobs in college. I waitress, but I also worked for a florist in Delaware. And then I worked as a florist when I graduated from college and moved to the Bay Area. So I just was always drawn to it. And then people would ask me to do their wedding flowers. So I did, when I worked in tech, I did my friend Suki's wedding, and then my friend Letitia's wedding. And, they were definitely very 90s flowers. And I did my brother's wedding. I'm trying to think. So I've always done people's weddings off and on. And then I worked in tech, and I became a teacher. I have a master's in ed, and I worked with kids with autism. And when I had my own family, and my kids were a little bit older, they're teens now, I thought, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back into teaching? Do I want to go into tech? And I thought, I really want to just work with flowers.
Oh, I love it.
So
I love it that you've kind of had flowers as a constant in your life, and instead of being like the side hustle, it kind of became the main hustle.
Well, yeah, and I'm part-time. I mean, I dream about doing it full-time, maybe full-time retail, but for now, I'm pretty satisfied with my part-time gig, and it allows me to be creative, and hopefully people like when I do their weddings, and
Oh,
Their
that's
wreaths,
amazing.
I have wreath orders this week. They like my wreath. They keep ordering every year. So,
Well, and you have kind of experimented with every facet of floristry, like you said, the local deliveries, the workshops, the weddings, kind of all season. I know last year I was gifted a potted amaryllis
oh
from
yeah,
Tammy that came from your studio. So um, your lifelong gardening skills are really serve you well, and
yeah.
it's trying to sounds like you're trying to find the right balance for what fits your lifestyle. And
Well, I think that's what I like about being a florist is you can, you could focus on education, you could focus on daily deliveries and a thriving kind of subscription business. You could be an event florist. You can be a freelancer. If you just want to
mhm.
be a freelancer, you don't have to have a studio space. Um, so for me, am I still like that book? What color is your parachute?
Yes, yes.
um,
What is your aptitude, Lori?
right. Maybe I'm still figuring that out. But I mean, I think, if you think about any life celebration in any culture, there are flowers involved.
hmm
And, you know, people use them when, somebody has a baby, you get married, somebody dies. Flowers are a part of that. So,
And I've observed just in watching your Instagram feed and seeing what you design, which you are pretty prolific. So if people want to know more about what materials, what ingredients, what seasonality is influencing Lori, you just go to Flory Flowers at Flory Flowers on Instagram, and you'll see some, through the 12 months of the year, something beautiful.
oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, but I feel like you have a community. Like you're relatively local in your emphasis on the Seattle area, maybe even a little bit zoom in a little bit more on the east side. But it's a big city and there's a lot of population, and I feel like you get clients word of mouth and through relationships.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I haven't really cracked is the other vendors for events and stuff, but I haven't really pushed it either. I could belong to the guilds and Snohomish and things like that, but I'm also very busy. I have teenagers, and one's going off, applying for colleges and going to colleges, so I'm still mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And this allows me to do all that. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens when my kids are in
In a
college
couple years.
and what I do.
Yeah. Are you wrapping up there? I don't want to distract you.
Oh, I am kind of
It is
finished with the
so
actual frame.
delightful. Oh my gosh.
And here's the thing, I might edit this a little bit. I usually hang it on my wall here. I don't know if you can see this. I'll hang it on my wall and say, oh, and then a tip is to take a photo of it, because that's when you see the asymmetry that you don't want or the symmetry that you don't want or do want. So,
Or like a
and you
little
can,
little negative space that needs to be filled or
yeah, like
whatever.
maybe I need to trim that center a little bit, and I'll do that. And then the
Did you
finishing thing is to add some accent, maybe a cone or a lotus pod, a couple cones, the magnolia leaves, and then I love ribbon. Like, I love beautiful ribbon. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's why I'm a florist. I love ribbon so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. It goes
I
back
love
to your
beautiful
striped
ribbon.
awning.
I just
Did
love beautiful ribbon.
did you tie that off already?
Um, I kind of did. I'm going to tuck it here.
Oh, okay. So that your final bunch you added, and now you clipped the twine, and now you're kind of
Yeah, and what you want to
hiding
do
it.
is just feed it back through your base on the
Okay,
back side and tie it.
okay.
But this might be seen in a window, so
So is this considered one of your smaller ones that you're making for the client who wanted four?
yes.
Okay. Wow. So
And this,
Lori, inevitably people want to know, what do you charge for that?
oh, I have a hard time pricing because most of it is from my property, but
Right.
you know, um,
But you're selling your design talent.
I'm selling my design talent, so I'm charging for larger wreaths anywhere from 75 to 100, and then my smaller ones I would probably charge, well, depending on if I have to purchase materials like the incense cedar and the magnolia, it might be 45 to 50 for the small
Okay.
ones. So
Okay. And then of course the ribbon.
plus tax and the ribbon, yeah. So
What ribbon are
um,
you planning to put on that?
this one, I have these gold ribbons back here. I'm actually going to give people a choice. I like to do custom work. I think that's what I like about floristry. So I have a double-faced satin. I have a mesh. It depends on if it's going to be undercover.
Sure.
This is a woven one. I love silk ribbon, but that's not going to hold up outside. So like in my my little wreaths on my French doors, I have a cotton red and white striped ribbon. So cotton holds up, polyester. If I could have all silk and velvet, I would. But
Yeah.
if you have a wreath outside and you don't have a porch or a cover, you can't do that. So.
Yeah. You kiss it
For
goodbye.
this one, for these, what I showed it with this ribbon on the
on your library.
Yeah, and she liked this. It's kind of a muted soft gold.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So it actually matches the little tips of the incense cedar.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So. I love it. Well, we're gonna maybe get a few photos of this once it's hanging too, and I'll put them in the show notes when we run. When we run the audio of this. Before we wrap up, though, I do want to hear about your ideas for sustainability in the. You called it celebrations of life. So basically a funeral alternative, right?
Right. And the reason that came up is I had my dad's first cousin died, and I called the florist that we had used for our rehearsal dinner back east. And I said, I don't want foam. Whatever you do not put it in Oasis foam. And this is not to bash florists who use foam. My whole thing, because I think I come from it as an educator, is to tell people, here's not what you should do, but here's the possibility of what you can do. Mm-hmm. And there's a really great product called Agri-Wool that was developed in the Netherlands. And I buy that from New Age Floral as well. And it's made from basalt rock, and it's 100% compostable. You do have to soak it longer than traditional foam, and some really fragile stems might not pierce it. So I pre-drill it or poke it with a skewer if I have to.
Something more firm.
But I have somebody that's picking up an arrangement on Friday, and she's actually flying to Hawaii with it. She wants a holiday centerpiece. So I'm using Agri-Wool so that it doesn't slosh all over when she's traveling with it, because that's, the best thing, in my opinion, for flowers is just to have water to uptake. Sure. But for the celebrations of life, I love what they do in England. They do just like a large sheaf. Maybe it's like 2 feet long, the flat one-sided bouquet, and they just tie it off with beautiful ribbon. You use flowers that you would use for an event because they're usually just a couple hours long. I did one for a fellow farmer florist when her grandmother died, and she loved it and her family loved it. And then the nice thing is you can take those out when you're burying someone and you can toss it into the grave or whatever. Right. But I think, this is just my personal opinion because I'm a florist, but I just kind of feel like the funeral options and celebration of life options are very dated and tired. And you've lived this whole life, and all of a sudden you're just going to, maybe you've sent your family member that you love beautiful flowers all their lives or whatever for birthdays. And then at their celebration of life, kind of the last time you're ever going to do flowers,
you're using something that's toxic. Yeah.
Well, they're not beautiful, and they're not eco-friendly, and they're not custom. So my cousin had a good friend die on the East Coast, and she was an avid horsewoman, and I made out of chicken wire and moss, a horseshoe, and her favorite flower were yellow roses. And I shipped that to her expense and to the East Coast. And the funeral home didn't want to put it up because it didn't have Oasis.
Wow.
So, I think we need to educate
right, because the industry doesn't understand this. It's just like a package they sell to families. Yes. And that happened when my father died, and I was too bereft to deal with it. Yeah. And so I just went along with it, and I have regrets about that.
Well, no one's going to fault you. I mean, I have my dad's first cousin, Dan O'Brien. They had his funeral today in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I sent flowers, but I made sure they were in a vase. But they weren't, anyway, so I don't want to say that, I just feel like there's a better way to do it.
Right. And we should stay in touch on this and maybe turn it into an article just to show people the many options the many options that are more eco-friendly. And as you said, are customized and unique to that individual and that family. So
right, and that's something, you know, I sold daily deliveries kind of arrangements on Laura Bloom, which is a platform for local and sustainable flowers. And Tammy of Laura Bloom and I have talked about partnering for celebration of life, because, you know, there's a need every day, and I don't know that we could all keep up individually. So we thought we'd have like a network, maybe through Laura Bloom, to do that.
Right,
so
right.
It's something I care about, because I think of flowers from kind of the whole life cycle, you know, and, you know, celebrations like, you know, you could use this as an Advent wreath, or I don't know. That's the one other thing I wanted to say, is that I have a good friend, Pooja, and she often hires me to do her Diwali flowers. I've made, you know, I'm not East Indian, of course, but I love learning about different cultures and floral traditions. And so I've made some garlands, and she had a anniversary celebration, and I made the garlands, and it was hard for me. I had to measure and string, and, you know.
Right.
So I think I love learning about different cultures through flowers too.
That's
so
neat.
I feel like flowers can encompass, you know, the whole life cycle, from birth to marriage to death, and they could be eco-friendly and pretty and custom.
I love it.
That's what I care about.
I love it. Lori, thank you so much for sharing your talents with us. A little peek inside your studio and getting us ready for the holiday season. I'm just, wow, I just love kicking off December like this. So we'll share all these links for people to find Lori and follow her, and maybe, as I said, get some photos that you'll edit for me to share in our show notes next week when this runs on the podcast, and you can find that for this interview at deborahprinzing.com. But this is going to air on YouTube and Facebook Live this week. So, Lori, thank you so much, and have a great holiday season.
Thanks,
and
Deborah.
I look forward to seeing you in the new year, if
Thank
not
you
sooner.
so much, and happy holidays to you.
Thanks so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks so much for watching today. As we mentioned, you'll be able to watch the replay video of today's show, along with the downloadable podcast link found in next week's Slow Flowers podcast for episode 535 at deborahprinzing.com. Before we wrap up, I have a few sponsored thank yous. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 880 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. Thank you to our lead sponsor for 2021, Farm Girl Flowers. Farm Girl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting more than 20 U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $9 million of U.S.-grown, fresh, and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgirlflowers.com. Thanks also to the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. Formed in 1988, ASCFG was created to educate, unite, and support commercial cut flower growers. Its mission is to help growers produce high-quality floral material and to foster and promote the local availability of that product. Learn more at ascfg.org. Thanks to Red Twig Farms, based in Johnstown, Ohio. Red Twig Farms is a family-owned farm specializing in peonies, daffodils, tulips, and branches, a popular peony bouquet by mail program, and their Spread the Hope campaign, where customers purchase 10 tulip stems for essential workers and others in their community. Learn more at redtwigfarms.com. And a final thanks to the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market, a farmer-owned cooperative committed to providing the very best the Pacific Northwest has to offer in cut flowers, foliage, and plants. The Growers Market's mission is to foster a vibrant marketplace that sustains local flower farms and provides top-quality products and services to the local floral industry. Visit them at seattlewholesalegrowersmarket.com. The Slow Flowers Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly video show and our long-running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowerssociety.com and consider making a donation to sustain Slow Flowers' ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find the donate button in the column to the right at deborahprinzing.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers podcast. And next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll see you